All right, today we're diving deep into the story of a parasitic worm that causes this really mysterious and severe illness. It actually creates growths inside the gut that look a lot like tumors, leaving doctors with a super complex puzzle to solve. This is the story of the nodular worm Oesophagostomum. So let's get into it.
So, just imagine this for a second. A patient comes in with terrible abdominal pain. The first thoughts are probably appendicitis, maybe a hernia, or even something as serious as a cancerous tumor. But what if it's none of those things? What if the cause is something way, way smaller, something alive, hiding inside the walls of their own intestines?
You see, the symptoms that doctors are faced with are both really severe and super confusing. Patients can show up with what's called an acute abdomen. That's a medical emergency that looks almost exactly like appendicitis. Or they might have this single large mass, which is sometimes called a Dapong tumor after the area in Togo where it's often seen. It can even cause life-threatening intestinal blockages. And get this, in some cases the problem shows up on the skin as these large but totally painless lumps.
Okay, so with a set of symptoms that baffling, the first huge step is just figuring out what you're dealing with. We're going to unmask the organism that's responsible for this whole condition, which is known as Oesophagostomum.
So the organism we're talking about comes from the genus Oesophagostomum. These are parasitic roundworms, and their common name, the nodular worms, well, it gives the game away. It points right to their signature move, forming these nodules or lumps in the intestinal walls of whatever animal or person they infect. And the scientific name itself actually gives us a little clue about what it looks like. Oesophagostomum comes from the Greek words for esophagus and mouth, and that's referring to a very specific feature, a really distinct groove right near the worm's head. It's a key identifier for the scientists who study it. And just so we're all clear on the biology here, this thing is a metazoan endoparasite. Okay, so metazoan just means it's a multicellular animal, with complex organs, not a simple single-celled protozoan. An endoparasite means it lives its entire life inside its host, a true internal invader.
And here, we can see exactly where it fits in the tree of life. It's in the animal kingdom, it's a roundworm or a nematode. But what's really crucial here is its order, Strongylida. That's the same group as some other pretty major parasites, including hookworms. Now remember that relationship. It's going to become a super important point a little later on.
So now that we've identified our culprit, let's kind of zoom out and take a look at its global footprint. Where in the world is this parasite actually causing problems, and who is it affecting the most? In some communities up in northern Ghana, stool culture surveys have found a prevalence rate of up to 44%. I mean, just think about that. That's nearly half the population in some areas showing evidence of this infection. It's just a powerful reminder that while this parasite might seem obscure to most of us, it is a huge public health issue in other parts of the world. The epicenter for human infection, it turns out, is really concentrated in one specific region, northern Togo and Ghana in West Africa. In this area, the species Oesophagostomum bifurcum, which is usually a monkey parasite, has actually managed to set up a natural transmission cycle within the human population. But this isn't just a human problem. Other species of Oesophagostomum are a massive issue for livestock all over the world. And of course, in our super-connected world, diseases don't always stay where they started. So in a country like the Netherlands, where this is an endemic, Saprophygostomiasis is considered an imported disease. It's usually diagnosed in people who have either traveled to or migrated from West Africa, and that presents a whole unique challenge for doctors who've probably never seen a case in their entire careers. So how in the world does this worm actually invade the body and cause such incredible damage? Well, to get that, we need to take a look at its really fascinating and honestly pretty destructive life cycle. The life cycle is what we call direct, which means it doesn't need an intermediate host to get the job done. It all starts with eggs being passed in the feces of an infected person or animal. Then, in warm, moist soil, these eggs hatch and develop into what are called infective third-stage larvae, or L3 larvae. Infection happens when a new host swallows these larvae, usually from contaminated food or water. Once they're inside, they burrow deep into the intestinal wall, and that triggers the body to form these nodules around them. Finally, they emerge back out into the intestine to mature into adults, and boom, the cycle starts all over again. So here you can see it. On the left, that's the microscopic egg, just as it would be found in feces. But with the right conditions in the environment, it develops into the infective L3 larva you see there on the right. A tiny, mobile worm, all ready to find a new host. And this right here, this is the most important part. The hallmark of this disease is the formation of these nodules. It's an incredible evolutionary strategy when you think about it. The parasite actually tricks the host's body into building a protected little nursery for its developing young. In veterinary medicine, they have a pretty graphic name for it: pimply gut. It's a vivid image of exactly the kind of damage it's doing.
This unique way it attacks the body leads to a major problem. How do you accurately diagnose it? It is not easy at all. Identifying this elusive parasite takes some real forensic work from both the clinicians and the lab technicians.
Okay, this is the heart of the challenge right here. Remember we said Oesophagostomum was related to hookworms? Well, here's the kicker. Under a microscope, their eggs look basically identical. So a standard stool exam could easily lead a doctor to say, it's a common hookworm infection, while the real, more dangerous culprit goes completely undetected.
So, to get a truly accurate diagnosis, you need a whole toolkit. Standard microscopy is quick, but it can't tell the species apart. The traditional gold standard is something called copper culture, basically growing the eggs into larvae, which takes over a week, but then you can see the difference. Much faster and more definitive is a molecular PCR test, which looks for a specific genetic marker to get a definitive DNA fingerprint of the parasite. And finally, you can use an ultrasound to literally see the nodules in the gut, confirming the physical damage. Knowing your enemy and how to find it is half the battle, right? So let's turn to how we actually fight back, from the treatments we have right now to the strategies being developed for future without this parasite. On the front lines, prevention is all about improving water, sanitation, and hygiene, the WASH strategy, to just stop transmission in the first place. For people who are already infected, anthelmintic drugs, which are basically deworming medications, are the go-to treatment. But there's a huge catch. The very nodules the worm creates to protect itself also act like these little shields, protecting the larvae from the medication. And that can make treatment incredibly difficult. Looking ahead, the research is actually really exciting. Scientists are working on recombinant vaccines to protect livestock, which could completely break the transmission cycle. They're using genomic surveillance to track the spread of drug resistance. But probably the most important strategy is this One Health approach. This idea that you can't solve this problem by just treating people. You have to address the health of humans, animals, and their shared environment all at the same time.
And this really brings us to a final, critical question. This parasite's journey from monkeys to humans, and the fact that it also impacts livestock, it forces us to think bigger. In a world where diseases can cross species barriers and travel the globe in a day, can we really afford to think of animal health and human health as two totally separate things? All the information in this explainer was compiled using a Gemini deep search. If you're interested in digging deeper, you can find a detailed list of all the sources in the Notebook LM document linked below.
And that's our look at the nodular worm. If you found this investigation into the hidden world of parasites valuable, please subscribe for more explainers just like this one. We'd love to know what you think, so please leave your feedback in the comments. Thanks for watching.